Hey, good morning. Pete, North Las Vegas. If you've been to the channel before, you know that I'm usually talking about ARs, some type of AR platform, but I have built other rifles, and this is going to be mostly a show and tell today. I'm not going to get too far into the weeds. About once a year, the rifles that sit in the back of the safe and rarely get shot, I pull them out, and then we get them oiled up. I live in southern Nevada, so there's just about hardly ever any humidity, so even if I didn't oil them, they're not going to rust. But anyway, I built 4 of these back in 2003. I sold 2 of them. The 2 that I sold paid for all the parts on these. Back then, I was able to put one of these together for about $600, and I sold each one for $1,200. So like I said, the 2 that I sold paid for these. When I sold the rifles, I told the guy he could have his pick. And these are the 2 that I ended up keeping. So for those of you that might not be familiar with the FNFAL, FN stands for Fabrique Nationale, and FAL stands for Fusil Automatique Léger, which English translation is light automatic rifle. Although it is very debatable as to how light these things really are, because they're not light. They're pretty robust. All right, we'll get into some of the details. Like I said, I'm not going to get too far into the weeds on these things, but try to share some information from what I remember and what I wrote down back in 2003. Okay, so the all black one is an 18-inch, and the olive drab is 21-inch barrel. This buttstock here is called the SA58X from DS Arms. It fit well, everything about it. It does have a problem though, and this thing will really give you some cheek slap when you get your face against the buttstock. There's just something different that they did with the angle or the thickness. I would recommend staying away from this, and I ended up having to put this this pad on here, but this is a little bit too thick, and then it causes me a little bit of a problem getting behind the rear sight. But anyway, I mean, it looks kind of nice, but functional wise, it's not great. Like I said, this is just something about it. I can't tell you exactly what it is, but it slaps the crap out of your cheek. Now this is surplus that I refinished. And when I got it, it had a few dings and scratches, and I got it all sanded down and got it painted up. This is also surplus. This one back here is the newer DS Arms. The lowers back then in 2003 were FN, new old stock, so they were brand new lower receivers. And that's what I ended up using on all 4 of them. A lot of this stuff you can't get anymore. It's just not available. So back then, EMBL was still building the upper receiver, and I don't think these are available anymore either. I think all the import restrictions, it's very difficult to find anything not made by DS Arms. But all the rifles used EMBL. For those of you wondering what EMBL is, I had to write it down. EMBL stands for Indústria de Material Bélico do Brasil. English translation, Brazilian War Material Industry. EMBL was one of the few manufacturers licensed by FN Herstal to reproduce the FNFAL. I think at the time there was only 2 or 3 countries that were allowed to build this rifle on license from FN. Okay, so all of the rifles I built back then had the serialized bolt carriers and bolts. So the bolt was stamped with a serial number, and the carrier was had a matching serial number. And so all those are matched up. When I headspaced these, I headspaced them to 1.635, which is kind of an in-between go, no-go number. so that I could feel safe about shooting .308 Winchester, but these were primarily designed to shoot 7.62 by 51 NATO. So by coming up with that headspace number, I think I kind of threaded the needle and got these to where they'll shoot either one. They'll either shoot the higher powered .308 Winchester or the lower powered NATO. Okay, so I probably should have mentioned this up front. The upper receiver is a Type 3 metric. There's 3 or 4 different styles of receivers that you can get, but these Embls were Type 3s. And we'll split the rifle halves and take a look inside, and I'll flip the rifles around and we'll take a look at the other side. I built the 18-inch without a carry handle, and I put a spacer in here just to take up the gap. And then this one here got the handle. Okay, so there's different types of carry handles. I think there's like 4 or 5 different types. This is what's referred to as the Brazilian and Argentine design. And it's a little bit longer than the original Belgian, and there might be some other differences to it, but this style here is just a little bit longer. It's probably close to ½ an inch longer. So on both rifles, I used the split handguard ring on the rear here. You can see it's a 2-piece. And if you don't use this 2-piece, then you have to remember that this goes on and then you spin your barrel on. So the only way you get this off and on is, you know, if you want to take that off, you'd have to take your barrel off. So I decided to go with the 2-piece version. Okay, so all the way back in 1953, FN knew that because of variations in ammunition, conditions, adverse, cold, hot weather, dirt, whatever, they knew that they needed an adjustable gas system. You can see the gas port right there. You see that hole that I'm pointing to? And what you do is you rotate this collar, and that regulates how much gas you vent off from the gas piston. And I'll open this thing up and I'll show you real quick the piston and how this vents gas. So the engineers back then, all the way in 1953, they knew what they were doing. Okay, so here's your gas piston. It's got a spring on it, return spring. So while this thing's working, and this is your gas plug. There was 2 styles of gas tube. There was a full-length gas tube, and then there was the partial gas tube. And most partial gas tubes are silver soldered into the gas block. The full-length gas tubes, they screw in with the nuts here towards the back of the receiver, and then they screw into the sight block. And so all 4 builds I did, I decided to go with the full-length gas tube. It just seemed to make more sense to me than what was being offered at the time and being silver soldered into the gas block. I didn't like that idea. Okay, so on the gas block here in the normal position, this is your normal firing position. And then it also has a grenade position where you turn the gas off. So if you're going to try to launch a grenade, you don't want the rifle to cycle, so that also accomplishes that. So when I put these rifles together, I used brand new barrels that were coming from Badger at the time, and they were being sold by DS Arms. These are medium contours, so they're a little bit heavier than the original FNFALs. And these SA-58 type muzzle devices, these are fake. The real ones have open slots. They're not closed on the end. I'm not sure why I decided to go with these. I had the originals. I think I still have them somewhere. Anyway, these are reverse threads. So you take them off in the tightening direction and you put them on in the opposite direction. So it's going to be lefty-tighty, righty-loosey. So the type of barrels I chose back then have the bipod lug and cutouts, although the original bipods are pretty clunky. So the original dust cover on the top of the receiver here was just a stamped metal piece. And so I upgraded to this DS Arms rail cover, which is pretty nice. I said these are mixed parts. Some of them are new old stock, some of them are surplus, and some of them are brand new. I went with the horizontal breakdown lever. There's another style that's vertical and goes all the way up here. So this area here would be going in this direction. And those have a tendency to bend if you don't hit them just right. So my understanding at the time was these horizontals don't bend out of shape. So anyway, I thought we'll take a look inside, and when you see the bolt carrier, man, it's kind of an engineering marvel, really. All the different angles and cuts and the way they built the thing, it's kind of a little odd. But anyway, to split the rifle, you just crank this thing up. I'm going to have to use two hands. That one's pretty stiff. I haven't opened this thing in I don't know how many years. This is an aftermarket buffer pad I put in here just in case the carrier tries to slam the back of the receiver. And I don't think it's really necessary, but it's there. Okay, so here's the bolt and bolt carrier. This rat tail here is what goes into the back of the buttstock. There's a big long spring in here, and that's your recoil spring. And this just sits on top of a plunger. That silver thing here in the back is that's the firing pin. And there's two styles of firing pin. The original design is a one-piece pin, and they kind of have a tendency to break. It's kind of rare when they do, but if something's going to break on this bolt carrier group, it's the firing pin. And I believe it was the Israelis that came up with a two-piece design. So the hammer portion of the firing pin is separate from the actual pin itself. So you drop them in three pieces, the back spring and the pin, where all you have here is one piece pin with a spring. And as far as I know, I don't think the Israelis had much problems at all with the two-piece failing. It's just the original design that every once in a while, if something's going to happen to this, it's usually the firing pin. But anyway, like I said, if you just look at all these different angles and cuts and all the different machining required to make this thing, it's just like, wow. Try to do a set of drawings for this. And then if you're the poor guy machining it. Okay, so back here is where your head spacing is established on the back of the bolt here. And as everything drops into place during cycling, this comes up against the locking shoulder back here. And this locking shoulder goes all the way through the rifle, and then that's what drops into place to establish your head spacing. And this is just press fit. It's anywhere from like 2 to 5 thousandths. Head spacing these rifles can be a pain in the butt. There's different ways to do it. Sometimes if you get lucky, you'll get the head spacing right the first time. I think on each one of these rifles, I had to try I think on this rifle, I had to try twice. On the other rifle, it took me 3 tries. You can get these in different sizes, or you can just get an oversized one and file it down yourself. I decided to buy the ones that were already sized. I was concerned about filing on these and getting the headspace done that way, versus the heat treat, the hardening, whatever is going on with this locking shoulder. So I thought, well, if I get the correct size, maybe it's got the correct heat treatment also, and me not filing on it, if that makes sense. Okay, so earlier in the video, I talked about how the bolt carrier and the bolt had serial numbers, and you can see that these are matching. Now, back on the original rifle, I believe that the rifle serial number would also match the carrier and the bolt. But because I use brand new receivers and lowers, we lost that. Because all the surplus stuff gets demilitarized and all cut up with a torch and whatever. But anyway, at least we got this part matching. Okay, so I was talking about head spacing earlier in the video. So what did I head space these rifles to? Both of them I head spaced exactly the same. And Climber gives you one set of numbers, and Forster gives you another set of numbers. So what I did was I added them all up and I averaged them. And I wanted to come in a little bit tighter than 1.635. I was shooting more for like 1.634, just another thou, to get them exactly where I wanted them. But like I was also saying earlier in the video, getting the correct size locking shoulder and getting this thing pounded in is not fun. So once I ended up at 1.635, as far as what Climber thinks, we're well within a 1.639 on the no-go. And then you come down here to Forster, and he's saying 1.634. So close enough. Okay, well, I don't think you guys want to watch me oil these things up. So that'll be the video for today. Like I was saying at the beginning of the video, not everything I own is an AR. Thanks, John. Pete, North Las Vegas. Over and out.